The year is 1768. We are standing at the very zenith of the Qing Dynasty's golden age. To the casual observer, the empire is a machine of perfect order. The granaries are full, the borders are expanding, and the population is exploding. Under the reign of Emperor Qin Long, China is perhaps the most prosperous and powerful state on the face of the earth, but prosperity is a thin veneer. Beneath the silk robes and the overflowing rice bowls, there is a deep, vibrating tension. A population boom means crowding. It means competition. It means a surplus of rootless men wandering the roads in search of work. It is in this atmosphere of hidden anxiety that a phantom is born. It begins not with a bang, but with a whisper in the mist-shrouded water towns of Jiangnan. We are here to dissect a case study of mass hysteria that is so perfect, so structurally complete, that it serves as a mirror for every witch hunt in human history. This is the story of the soul stealers. It starts with a bridge, or rather, a broken one. In the spring of 1768, in a district near the Yangtze Delta, the local government was repairing a water gate. Masons and laborers gathered, strangers in a strange town. To the suspicious locals, these dusty, wandering workers were already figures of unease. Then, the rumor sparked. Summoning whispered that the masons were not just laying stones. They were practicing a dark art. They were stealing souls. The mechanism of this sorcery was terrifyingly specific. It was said that these sorcerers could write a person's name on a slip of paper and nail it into the pilings of the bridge. As the heavy hammers drove the nails in, they were actually driving nails into the spirit of the victim. The bridge would draw strength from the stolen life force, standing strong while the victim withered and died. But the fear quickly mutated. It wasn't just names, it was hair. Specifically, the queue, the long braided pigtail that every Chinese man was forced to wear by law. In the Qing Dynasty, the queue was not a fashion statement. It was a political leash. It was the symbol of submission to the Manchu conquerors. To cut it was treason. But in the hysteria of 1768, the queue became something else. It became the handle of the soul. The rumor spread that sorcerers were wandering the country, snipping off the ends of men's braids with concealed scissors. They would use this hair to cast spells, stealing the soul of the owner to create an army of paper soldiers, or to steal their vitality for longevity. This is where the sociology of panic takes over. The rumor did not stay in Jiangnan. It traveled up the Grand Canal, carried by boatmen, merchants, and the very drifters the population feared. It moved faster than the imperial post. Suddenly, the stranger became the sorcerer. In a pre-modern society, your safety network is your village, your clan, the people whose faces you know. The stranger is an anomaly. In 1768, with the population surging, the roads were full of strangers, beggars, traveling monks, herbalists, fortune-tellers. These were the marginalized, the social outcasts. And when the panic struck, they became the targets. The violence was not orchestrated by the state, at least not at first. It was a grassroots eruption of vigilance. In market squares and on dusty highways, ordinary farmers and shopkeepers turned into mobs. If a wandering monk asked for water and his accent was strange, he was surrounded. If a beggar looked at a child too long, he was seized. We see here the classic displacement of anxiety. The peasant cannot fight the rising price of rice. He cannot fight the overcrowding of his village. But he can fight the soul stealer. He can punch the monk. He can drag the beggar to the magistrate. It gives a sense of agency in a world that feels out of control. The archives describe horrific scenes of misunderstanding. A man scratching an itch on his head might be accused of hiding a pair of scissors. A traveler carrying a bundle of herbs might be accused of carrying stupefying powder. They were beaten, tied up, and dragged to the yamen, the local government office. This places the local officials in a bind. The magistrates of Jiangnan were educated men. They read Confucius. They generally did not believe in black magic. When a beaten monk was dragged before them, accused of stealing souls with a pair of rusty scissors, the magistrate saw a farce. He saw a public order problem, not a supernatural one, so the local officials tried to suppress it. They flogged a few sorcerers to appease the mob, but they reported nothing to the emperor. They treated it as a nuisance, a localized outbreak of stupidity. They wanted to keep their records clean. But you cannot hide a panic that spans half an empire. Eventually, the reports reached Beijing, and this is where the story shifts from a social tragedy to a political thriller. Enter Emperor Qin Long to the local magistrate. Queue, cutting, was a superstition. To Qin Long, it was something far more dangerous. It was sedition. The queue was the symbol of Manchu authority. If people were cutting queues, even if they claimed it was for magic, they were desecrating the symbol of the state. Qin Long did not see a hysteria, he saw a conspiracy. He was a man obsessed with control, and he sensed a rot beneath the surface of his golden age. He believed that there must be a mastermind. These beggars and monks must be agents of a secret society, plotting to overthrow the dynasty. The emperor unleashed the full weight of the imperial state. He reprimanded his governors for their laziness. He demanded arrests. He demanded the truth. The machinery of the Qing legal system ground into gear, and it is a terrifying machine. The soul stealers were moved from the local jails to the provincial capitals. The interrogators were told by the emperor that there was a plot, and their job was not to find out if it existed, but to find out who was running it. Under the pressure of the clamp, the torture began. We do not need to describe the instruments used. We only need to look at the results. Under agony, a starving beggar will confess to anything. He will admit he is a sorcerer. He will admit he has a master. He will invent names, places, and hierarchies. Yes, I cut the braid. Yes, I work for the master of the dark cave. Yes, we have an army of papermen. These confessions were rushed to Beijing. Qin Long read them with vindication. See, he told his doubts. I was right. There is a rebellion. He ordered more arrests. The frantic governors, terrified of losing their positions or their heads, scrambled to find the people named in the confessions. But this is where the tragedy turns into the absurd. The soldiers would march to the village named in the confession to find the master sorcerer, and they would find nothing. The village didn't exist, or the person named was a man who had been dead for 10 years, or the master was a illiterate peasant who had never left his farm. The conspiracy was a hallucination. It was a feedback loop of pain and fear. The emperor demanded a plot, the torturers produced a plot, and the prisoners signed the plot to stop the pain. For months, the empire chased its own shadow. Thousands were arrested. The productivity of the bureaucracy was consumed by a phantom war. Finally, the bubble had to burst. The discrepancies in the confessions became too glaring even for the emperor's most loyal grand counselors to ignore. They began to cross-examine the prisoners without the threat of the rack, and the truth spilled out like water. There were no soul stealers. There were no paper armies. There was no master. It was just a mason who wanted to scare a rival. It was a beggar who tried to cheat a villager. It was a monk who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was the projection of a society's collective nightmare onto the faces of its most vulnerable members. The ending of this story is not a dramatic explosion, but a heavy, suffocating silence. Qin Long was forced to call off the hunt, but he never admitted he was wrong. He never apologized to the monks who had died in prison or the beggars who had been crippled. Instead, he blamed his officials. He scolded them for being incompetent. He blamed them for failing to manage the populace. He spun the narrative to save face. The sorcery charge was dropped, replaced by charges of spreading rumors or vagrancy. The soul stealers' panic of 1768 faded as quickly as it had begun. The queues grew back. The monks went back to wandering. The Golden Age continued its march toward its eventual twilight. But as sociologists of history, we look back at this event and we see the anatomy of our own modern fears. We see how easily a rumor can weaponize a population. We see how the fear of the stranger is a dormant virus in the human operating system, waiting for the right conditions of stress and overcrowding to activate. We see the banality of evil in the local bureaucracy, officials who knew the truth but tortured prisoners anyway because the emperor demanded results. They were not monsters. They were careerists. They were just doing their jobs. The tragedy of 1768 was not that magic was real. It was that the fear was real. The souls were indeed stolen, not by sorcerers with scissors, but by a system that demanded conformity and a society that had lost its trust in one another. In the end, the broken bridge in Jiangnan was repaired, but the cracks in the foundation of the empire remained, invisible to the eye, widening in the dark, waiting for the next panic to bring the whole structure down.